Okay. Before we begin, let's all take a few moments to be quiet together. Good evening, and welcome to everyone who's joining us on the internet. Well, in the timeline of the story, Christmas, Easter, with its crucifixion and resurrection, as it is being remembered in these past few weeks, we are at a point in the narrative, in the story, where I must remind everyone that I said, "And I, if I be lifted up, draw all men unto me." All men. I didn't say Americans. I didn't say Germans. I didn't say Jews would be lifted up, would be drawn unto me. All men. Why? Why is no one excluded? Well, the reason is that the delineations which are applied to mankind that seem to create actual differences are superficial and superimposed upon brothers and sisters who are all part of one family. Mankind. The brotherhood. The sons and daughters of God. This is the simple, fundamental fact. How many families do you think God has? One. One infinite family. Now, with every single one of you, as you engage in awakening, as you engage in the practice of Christianity or A Course in Miracles or any of the major religions, in its most basic principles, you arrive at a point where you realize the absolute necessity of love being the bottom line of relationships. And it becomes clear to you in your, shall we say, crucifixion and resurrection, that it is your function to be lifted up, to go to the Father, and draw all men unto you, which means abandoning the boundaries, the artificial sets of differences that you have employed in being conscious of everyone, and allowing unconditional embrace of everyone, because it is one brotherhood. The simple fact is that on your globe, what happens in Turkey or Syria or Lebanon or Russia or the United States or China or North Korea, no matter what goes on there, it's going on with human beings who are fundamentally and actually the sons and daughters of God, the current expression of a living divine presence. Again, family, a unity. Now, the ego is not interested in unity or wholeness. It is intent upon divisiveness, upon separation. Its very existence depends upon your engaging in the belief that you have been able to separate your mind from the infinite mind that God is, and have a private, independent, conscious awareness of being. That fundamental separation is what the ego, the sense of yourself that resulted, uses to further establish independence and separation upon everyone else, so that unity, wholeness, and what is actually divine sanity is not experienced. The undoing of the result, the resulting separation, difference, chaos, conflict, is letting love in again. Letting love become more important than independence and the maintenance of differences, period. Now, the statement is, divine love always has met and always will meet every human need. The word human is very important, because one cannot afford to let one's spirituality lift you above, quote, being human, unquote. Because if that separation is accomplished, you are blocked absolutely from the experience of being whole, of being invulnerable. In other words, being safe, being at peace, not always on the defense, divine love meets the human need. It doesn't meet the corporate need. It doesn't meet the financial need. It doesn't meet the need of Wall Street. It meets human needs. Now, when you don't get so highfalutin that you think you're somebody in your own right, and that you can manage to meet your human needs yourself, you lose your humanity. In other words, you find a way to fool yourself into thinking that you can be at peace and happy even if your needs are not met. But you know what? Your human needs are the experiences of lack, which it is not your birthright to be experiencing, you holy son or daughter of God. And it is only in the resolving of those needs that your holiness can be illuminated to you, allowing you to abandon the valuing you place on being independent, separated from your Father, and different from your brothers and sisters. The meeting of human needs is a fundamental need. Corporate, political, financial activities all have one fundamental need, and that is to address the meeting of the human needs, not to override them or disregard them or set a different criteria in place for what is important. And that is what is out of kilter at the moment. You know, someone might say, well, Raj, when are we going to start studying the Course again? And I might ask, in response, when are you going to start living the Course? Really? When are you going to recognize the fundamentals of being that the Course addresses, which need to be translated into actions of brotherly love? Because otherwise, it's very easy to let the study of the Course and the ideas that it expresses to become a salve, an insulation against human need. And this is very detrimental. Love thy neighbor as thyself. But first of all, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. The Course talks a lot about forgiveness, and students of the Course talk a lot about forgiveness. But what is forgiveness? Well, It's the willingness to change your mind. And yes, that will involve having a different perspective. But I'm going to suggest to you that there's a simpler meaning to it. You change your mind by abandoning the personal, private mind that you think you have and that you use all the time in favor of leaning into the mind of God. Shifting from independence to union, to unity, and letting your actions arise out of the communion of having joined with God. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and mind and soul. That's the first commandment. That's the first step. And then, having abandoned a false sense of mind for that which is truly the mind of God, you then find yourself filled with new perspective, with new vision. That's the gift of God. Vision is His gift to me. The love of God fills you with His vision so that you might fulfill your function of giving voice to it, of expressing it. You see, let that mind be in you, the Bible says, which was also in Christ Jesus. That's called changing your mind. Taking off an old garment and putting on a new one. Or, shall I say, taking off an old garment that you have put on over your natural, God-given garment of being. Well, it's a little bit messier when you dare to get involved with the meeting of human needs. Why? Because everyone you know, in one way or another, is suffering from the same disease of independence, the same mental disease called independence. And it's just as hard for them to abandon their commitment to their independence as it is for you. You know what? You know what is essential to the involvement of brotherhood? Being willing to witness for your brother. Being willing to witness for your brother. Now this is an important factor. What constitutes witnessing for your brother? I will tell you what it doesn't. It doesn't involve looking at your brother, remembering God, and then saying, no matter how abusive your behavior is, you're the child of God, and I love you. It isn't saying, I forgive you my perception of abusiveness. I'm willing to withdraw it. Because I have been told and I have learned that the only thing I'm confronted with is the kingdom of heaven, no matter how it looks. And so, in spite of your bad behavior, I do not challenge you. I embrace you. I love you. I love you. Well, I will tell you something. When you first love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, which means not holding any part of you separate from God, not withholding any part of you from God, you become a witness for what is true about your brother, and that means saying no to what is not true of your brother, and then giving voice to the truth that will inspire your brother to see himself differently. That's the task. That's the messiness of it, you might say. But when you have loved the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind first, the vision is given to you with which to persist. But also, the vision is given to you to disallow for abuse as your brother yields to the inspiration. This is very important. And the problem with many spiritual seekers is that they say, that's too much work. Healing is miraculous. Well, yes, it is. Love is miraculous. But love must be expressed. And love says no to the illusion and yes to the reality. And it teaches reality. It takes the time, as I am taking the time, to teach what is true and to be that which inspires a shift of perception in your brother. Now, you know what? On the face of your globe, there are many countries. The boundaries of those countries used to be much more definite than they are now, and to move across the boundaries required documentation, passports. And if you didn't have a passport, the boundary was absolute. The boundary was a wall that kept you in and kept you apart from what was on the other side. But the fact is that you live on a globe that has one surface, one whole surface, and you all live on that one whole surface. And there is nothing to differentiate you in actuality. You are already family. You even have a phrase for it, the family of man, and that is not a religious or spiritual description. The family of man. Now, you live in a time where it is becoming increasingly difficult to imagine that there are actually significantly different countries that must be respected for their differentness. In every way, everyone is experiencing being more involved. And that broader involvement cannot be ignored. But, indeed, there are those who object to the idea of one world, who say it's very important to maintain the distinct separateness. But it isn't going to work, because even though for centuries everyone has experienced separateness, it's only been because of a lack of a larger view. But the larger view is now present with satellite communication and with the Internet. It no longer takes a month to write a letter to someone in Europe from the United States or vice versa, and then wait for a response to come back. Now, you pick up your phone, you send a text message, it's received within seconds, and you get a response back within a few more seconds. It's not possible to think that you're separate anymore, because the experience has changed while nobody was planning on it. But everyone, not everyone, but too many, insist upon holding to the sense of separation which is already obsolete. What happens in Syria must be important to what happens. It must be important to those in the United States, just as what is happening in the United States is important to the rest of the world. And no one should say, it's none of your business what we do here. Of course it's their business, because it is already one world. One world in which brotherhood must become the normal concept of mankind, where love is intent upon meeting the human need, because every single individual on your globe knows what human need is, knows that it is not something to be burdened with or saddled with, stuck with, to suffer from. Everyone knows that. And so it is everyone's business that everyone else be provided with the opportunity to have the human need met. Why? So that a disparate conglomeration of people on the globe can feel safe? No, because the way in which human need is met is by virtue of the two commandments. First of all, loving the Lord your God with all your heart and mind and soul. And the second, loving your neighbor as yourself. Wow. I've said it before. I am the Christ, but I am not a Christian. And I mean by that I am the Christ just as you are the Christ. And I am your brother. And you are my brother or sister. All of us holy sons of God, who are not a definition, a Christian or a Jew, or a Muslim, or a Buddhist, or a Catholic, or a Presbyterian. We are brothers connected by the fact that all of us experience the same needs. And those needs are the threshold of the discovery of our divinity. And so the reason for addressing human need is to aid ourselves in waking up to letting that mind be in each of us that is in me, so that there is a sudden shift of perception and illusion dissolves. Now, there is great concern in the world. Concern for local reasons and concerns for global reasons. Those concerns, no matter what country they're being experienced in, are resolved by the same answer. You must witness for your brother and sister. You must speak up once having joined with the Father and having been filled with the vision the Father provides, to inspire, shift. It will happen only through embrace, because that is what love is. And in witnessing for the meeting of the needs, you will have to say no to that which is aggressively blocking the meeting of the human needs by addressing other so-called needs, such as a better bottom line in the corporate business or in the personal wealth. In every place where human need is not the reason for what is being the meeting, where the meeting of human need is not the goal, change is called for. Saying no to what blocks the meeting of the human need must be done. And I'm sorry, but it involves greater involvement than going up into your ivory tower with your metaphysical or Course in Miracles principles and sitting in bliss. while the turmoil of the illusion around you goes on, which doesn't matter because it's not real anyway. That's very dangerous metaphysics. That's very dangerous spirituality. Witnessing for your brother, being that which is capable of inspiring your brother, is not more important than saying no to that which undermines it or keeps your brother in bondage. If your brother is engaging in something that keeps him in bondage and puts others in bondage, you must say no. You must raise your voice. Give voice to the voice for truth. Now, it's true that there are no private thoughts, and therefore any conscious awareness you have of reality does bless everyone. But it cannot substitute for acts that substantiate it, acts that allow for its manifestation to occur in the world. Now, we will continue with studying the course, but you already know enough to put into practice you already have enough inspiration. Now, as the saying goes, comes the time for perspiration, where you care enough to diligently persist in giving voice to the truth, just as there are those who are persistently giving voice to error. This is not as a contest, but you know what it is? It's being willing to let God be the presence right where you are that changes, that transforms the world, returning it to its original state, which really means returning your awareness of it to its original state, because you're no longer attempting to privately define the world, in spite of what the world is as God is being it. I have one major thought, one major inspiring thought to share with you. It is this: I give you permission to say no to what isn't true. I give you permission to say no. I could say, I give you permission to object to it, but there are connotations to the word objection. to the word object, that I don't want to bring into play, because to object to something conveys the idea of starting a small conflict, a state of tension. But you know what? When you simply say no to something, it means that you are neglecting to engage with it. You are neglecting to confirm it. You're not challenging it. You're neglecting to respond to it. It doesn't move you. And as I've said before, the one thing the ego cannot defend itself against is disregard. You know, you don't have to walk around saying or yelling the word no. You can simply, quietly, calmly say no. And because of your union with God, because of your willingness to let His vision infill you, you're saying no. The verbalizing of it will utterly convey peace, or what I might call an absence of fear. And in the absence of fear, the ego of another finds nothing to grapple with. And in the ongoing disregard, it gives up its attempt, and shift has begun. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. You do know what truth is. When you pay attention to human need, you know what is needed. And it's easy to say no to what doesn't meet that need. And the no comes out with the substantiality of inner peace. And so, tonight, I don't want you to forget how to say no, and to say it while also verbalizing, giving voice to the support of that which meets human needs, because humaneness is a God expression which everyone needs to embody in order to come home together. Every week or every time we meet, I end by saying, I love you very much. That's the alpha and omega of me, of what I be, of what I am, of what the Father is expressing where I am. It is also the Alpha and Omega of you. Already. To whatever degree you value independence, you will support it in your world. And to that degree, you are blocking its healing. And that is not what you want to do. It really isn't your goal. The abandonment of independence is established by your shifting what you value and changing your mind for God's. I love you very much, and I look forward to being with you next time.